Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's having a great day. I guess depending on where you are in the world and where you're joining from, it may be early in the morning still, but here in Ontario, it is the evening. So for anybody who's in Ontario or the same time zone, I hope that you've had a great day thus far. Welcome to Joy Interrupted. It is going to be an hour webinar, and we are going to explore joy, what it's all about, and how different blocks can interfere with our experience of joy and happiness in life, and also how to cultivate more joy in our lives. It is a question that I know I get asked a lot in my practice, so we thought that we would offer a webinar all about joy. And to get started, I'm going to give just a couple minutes for people to get logged on. So I'll just start with a brief introduction of myself. I'm Sheila Paluzzi. I am a social worker and a therapist in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. I work out of the Healing Loft, which is a holistic wellness center that I am co-owner of. And I'm also co-director of Mental Health Foundations. So one of our missions for Mental Health Foundations is to be able to offer and provide as many free resources as possible to people in terms of finding wellness and in the domains. The last webinar I did it on beautiful boundaries. So just wanting to offer people as many free resources as possible if you're on your path to wellness or just interested in specific topics, so that you know we'll also be recording these webinars. And how they're set up is you can see me obviously through video, but I cannot see any of you. So I welcome if you are at home in your onesie and having a glass of wine, just to reassure you that I can't see any of you. Or if you have to, turn around and yell at your child to be quiet for the 5th time, that nobody's going to be able to see you throughout this webinar. I do love interaction though. So if you notice on the bottom of your screen, it will, there's a big Q and a square and it says Q&A. Through there, you can ask questions at any time throughout the webinar. I will most likely look near the end of the webinar and address any questions at that time because they don't always pop up right away on my screen. Trying to think. I think that is all in terms of business. I do believe I already mentioned it will be recorded. So if you end up joining later on, or if you were signed up and missed it, this will be available at Mental Health Foundation's website. And it is www.mentalhealthfoundations.ca, and you will see it. I'm going to share my screen now, and you will see it on the PowerPoints slides throughout. And there it is at the very bottom. Sorry. Okay, there we are. So what I thought I would start with first is just a bit of a reference and context for what I'm referring to. I know there's a lot of different researchers on joy and a lot of people speaking about joy these days. And just to provide context for this webinar, referring to joy as an emotion. So I know a lot of people are in this pursuit of happiness, right? Or I'll be happy when I get that job, or when I can finally, have a baby, or when I'm married, or find the partner of my dreams. Joy is an emotion. It is the same as anger, fear, sadness. It's a lot more enjoyable, I guess, to feel in our bodies, but that it is an emotion. Whereas happiness is, I always think of it kind of like as a state, or like this, if you've ever been like me, I know like I always felt like I was chasing happiness. I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. And oftentimes I would be missing out on these really beautiful experiences of joy in search of this pursuit of happiness. So for the context of our webinar this evening, joy is in terms of an emotion. And like any other emotion, there's a physiological response that we experience when joy bubbles up. So I even just how I use the word bubbles. Often, joy, it's felt in the heart. Sometimes people will describe it as like a radiating or a warmth. There's a lot of connection to like that feeling of wanting to jump up and down when we feel joy. And it comes up just to let us know, right, that something is happening that is really beautiful. And joy is, for me anyway, one of the most beautiful emotions to experience. To me, joy is, where love and hope and just all of those things kind of resonate with. And that it's a focus on the heart. And the heart is the origin of joy. So in today's culture, especially in our Western society, we're often really encouraged to, be up here. I know oftentimes, like, I've spent days where I've just been neck up and I haven't really been into my heart or my body. I've just been thinking and analyzing. And I think for a lot of people, that is alone one of the blocks of experiencing a lot of joy. We spend so much time in our heads thinking and analyzing and like seeking joy, and yet joy is a heart experience. That's where we feel it. That's where it arises and bubbles up from. So we'll get into more detail in terms of, how to get into our hearts. But that joy is all about the heart, and that it's an inside job. So I know a lot of people, like clients, but even people in my life, they'll talk about not, being able to access joy. And one thing in all of the research that I've done thus far is that we all have the same capacity for joy. And this is regardless of our life circumstances, our chemical makeup, or culturally, that it is an inside job. So sometimes finding our way back to joy or connecting with joy is very, very difficult, and it's harder for other people, but that we all have the capacity to feel joy. So whether you are really struggling to experience joy in your life or just wanting to feel more of it, we're going to look at and explore how we can connect to joy more often. But first, to acknowledge some of the common culprits in terms of what blocks our joy. And one of the main ones that I often, hear about, that I've researched about, and that I've experienced in my life as well, is that we live in, the scarcity fear culture. I've traveled for work today. And even like in the airports, watch your bags, don't leave children unattended. There's constant messages about fear everywhere we go. And when we're in fear, it blocks our ability to experience joy. And part of the reason is because, we can't even look for those beautiful little moments, because I know that when I'm in fear, for most of us, we're hypervigilant. I was constantly on alert, like is my bag next to me? Okay. Making sure that, okay, no one's like going to come in the washroom and like steal my purse while I'm going to the washroom. All of those fear things that we are, I believe, almost trained and to fear and to constantly be hypervigilant. So when we're in that state constantly, it's really difficult to stop and, the metaphor, smell the roses, because we're in that hyper aroused, looking for the next threat state. And then the scarcity is about just never enough, right? There's not enough. There's, it's a very, I believe it's improving, but I do believe it's a very individualistic society. We're taught to, that there's not enough food, there's not enough money, there's not enough this. And so again, I think it just adds to that fear of constantly being hypervigilant, and these perceived threats are everywhere, right? Whether it's not having enough money or food or love, or having your children taken or drugs slipped into your suitcase while you're not looking at the airport. It really, really, really impacts our ability to drop down into our heart and connect with joy. There's also emotional blocks. And some of the most common emotional blocks around joy are fear, guilt, shame, and grief. And what I mean by emotional blocks is that depending on, our history, our life experiences, sometimes when joy comes up for us, we might have another emotional reaction right after. So an example is, I don't know if any of you can connect to this, but I know sometimes I'll look at, my husband and our son and feel so much love in my heart that I feel like it's going to explode. And then in an instant, this fear also comes over, this fear of like, what if I lost them? Or what if something bad happened? Or what if one of them got sick? And so, just in that, the prime of the joy, fear comes in and squashes it right out. An example with guilt, I know, is that, sometimes when I'm speaking with people and they'll share, I feel guilty, like celebrating or being joyful or talking about things that I'm really happy about, because I feel like, or I was brought up, to not brag, and that I shouldn't be, happy and celebrating and talking about all the good things in my life, because that might make other people feel bad. So I know for some people, when joy comes up, they feel like they have to, like there's this guilt around it, and they have to kind of shut it down or keep it inside. And then the shame, I know I've experienced this one before. Sometimes when I feel joyful, I act silly. And I'm sure some of you can connect with that as well. Because sometimes, just the description of when it bubbles up, we get silly and ridiculous. And some of us have been shamed in our lives, for being, whether it's, just singing a song at the top of your lungs because you have joy in your heart, or doing a little dance in the middle of the store when you're shopping. I'm sure my stepson gets so embarrassed when I do things like that. He doesn't shame me though. He just gets embarrassed and walks away. But for some of us, when we've had those experiences of joy, shame has come in, and it's kind of put this layer over top. And in terms of the emotional block of grief, I know for some people, especially if there's been a loss, or if they've lost someone that they love, there's the joy comes up. Maybe it's a memory of their loved one, or, they see a picture and they just feel this, this joy about the relationship that they have with that person. And then the sadness comes in and, kind of brings the experience of that joy down quite quickly. So emotional blocks are quite common, and we'll be, identifying emotional blocks later on, so that we can figure out how to begin to work through them. Another culprit in terms of our joy blocks is numbing. So I know for any of you who have, worked with me or know how I work a lot with emotions, and talk about, how often we avoid emotion because it's really uncomfortable. And the one thing with numbing, it's something that is not uncommon. A lot of us do it. We might numb with food, alcohol, work, exercise, drugs, you name it. But when we're numbing out emotions, we can't selectively numb. I know for most people, and myself included, I wish I could, numb out shame and probably fear. Those ones I don't like as much, anger, and I'd love to just feel joy all the time. The only thing is that if I'm numbing out all of those other emotions, I'm also going to numb out my ability to experience joy. So choosing joy is a very, I think sometimes very courageous and vulnerable decision, because it opens us up, and requires us to be able to connect with our other emotions as well. Seeking the extraordinary, definitely something that I know I get caught up in, and has definitely interfered with, at times in my life, my ability to feel joy and, be happy. And this is all about, we feel as though we have to reach these really, incredible goals in life, and we miss out on all of those little beautiful things that happen along the way. And I was watching a video that Brene Brown did, and she said in her research that when she researched people who had lost somebody that they really, really loved, that the things that they missed the most were those really simple, beautiful moments. And it wasn't the extraordinary. It was the, making coffee in the morning, or the way the sound of that person's laugh. And so when we get really focused on what's next, then we're not looking at those little beautiful moments that joy is often found in. And it's not to say that we can't goal set, or we can't, work towards achievements. It's something that's important for me in my life. But what I know I've tried to really do is, so to say, enjoy the process a little more. So instead of just trying to reach that end goal, and then once that end goal is met, what's the next end goal, to really enjoy the process along the way and find those beautiful things to experience joy. And I'm just thinking, I'm away for work, and I was walking to dinner, and I was up in my head, and I was thinking of, okay, got to make sure that I have the webinar. I got to make sure that I have my presentation for tomorrow. Da, 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 da. And then I realized that, it wasn't so much seeking the extraordinary, but I was totally all up in my head and not even in the moment. And then when I recognized it and I started looking around, there was this, beautiful stream that I walked over from a bridge, and flowers, and it just completely changed my experience in that moment. So instead of being stuck up here and like, what's next, I was able to just enjoy the walk to dinner and the walk back. And then the last one is, we wear disappointment as a shield. It's a protective thing for a lot of us. And it is that preparing for the worst, right? I don't want to get too excited about, this event, because it might not happen anyway. Or I don't want to celebrate too much because something bad might happen to take it away. So it's almost, to me, it's similar maybe to numbing, but it's a little bit different, is that we kind of just expect the worst. And I know I've heard from a lot of people, and I've even felt it myself, if I prepare for the worst, then it won't be as devastating if it doesn't go well. And it'll be awesome if it happens. And yet when we live in that state, for the most part, again, we miss out on these beautiful opportunities to really, truly be in joy and experience joy. So these are some of the common culprits of joy blocks. And I'd like to do an exercise now, because not all of them will ring true for you. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to have you close your eyes. I'm going to, we'll do a bit of deep breathing. I'll guide you through it. And then I'm going to read these phrases out loud. And what I invite you to do is write down the two that you feel resonate most as true for you in your body. And when we are done, I'm going to encourage you to write it down, because we're going to use that in a different experiential, in terms of how to work through joy blocks. Okay. So if it feels comfortable, you can close your eyes. And we're just going to take a few deep cleansing breaths in through the nose, and out through the mouth. Just begin connecting with the body. And exhale. Inhale, 3, 2, 1. And exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. And one more. Inhale. And exhale. And just take a moment now to notice, without any judgment, just how your body is feeling in this moment. Just observe where there may be tension, where you're feeling relaxed. Just doing a bit of an inventory in terms of your physical state right now. And as I read through the next phrases, again, just if you can, to keep your eyes closed and just instead of, thinking about whether it's a yes or a no, really see how the phrase resonates in your body and, be aware of any reactions your body has. Don't celebrate too much. No one likes a bragger. There is no time for joy. You have other things to do. What's next? If you lean into joy and truly feel it, bad things will happen to take it away. It is better to prepare for the worst than to be greatly disappointed. And so just notice which one of those phrases most deeply resonated or powerfully resonated within you, and write it down. And so now we're going to do an exercise that can help us to move through some of these blocks. The beautiful thing is, just even bringing awareness to what our joy blocks are changes our relationship to it, having that awareness. And, in brackets, I have no judgment. Again, a lot of our blocks around joy are either, from our past life experiences. A lot of them are, kind of what we've been told we should believe or how we should think, the fear culture, all of those things. So when looking at our blocks, I really invite you to not have any judgment towards yourself for them and to just acknowledge that simply having awareness of what they are will change your relationship to them. I remember when I first recognized my block around shame and joy and my silliness, my relationship with joy switched, and I'd lean into it more often and be silly and just let it happen. So you're already you're one step ahead of where you were, 20 minutes ago. But for this experiential, we're going to really practice bringing awareness to joy blocks and making that conscious decision to choose joy, and then learning how to drop into the heart to really be able to connect with that feeling of joy so we can manifest it and become familiar with it and make that decision to really connect to it. So if you have your block that you wrote down from the previous screen in terms of the phrase, and I'll go back for a second. So number one is a block connected to, guilt or shame around celebrating joy. Number two is that more of the, the extraordinary, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. There's no time to celebrate. What's next? Number three is around that, the fear, right? If I truly, truly lean into it, something bad will happen. And number four is connected to that block around wearing disappointment as a shield. So if you can write down, again, what you find is your most common. Some of them might ring true for all of you, but to write down the one that you notice for yourself most often interferes with your ability to connect with joy. And to just have that in your awareness as we go into this exercise. And so what I will invite you to do again, if it feels comfortable to do so, is to close your eyes And we're just going to start again by taking a few deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, just really connecting to the body. Breathing in and exhale. And one more time, inhale and exhale. And allowing your breath now to return to its natural rate and rhythm, if that feels right. And to call to mind the block that resonated with you the most from earlier. And really try to get a sense of how it feels in your body, whether it's the fear or guilt. You may even call to mind times in your life when this block has interrupted your joy or your experience of it. And although these emotions and this experience may not be comfortable, to just allow a few moments to really connect with what it is like when that block around joy has been or is present in your life. And to really notice where those feelings resonate within your body. Just using your breath to ground you at any time. Just connecting without judgment to what it is like when those blocks are present and how it feels in your body. The fear or guilt or shame or grief bubble up. And now, to make the choice and affirm, either in your mind's eye or out loud, in this moment, I choose joy. And take a deep breath. And again, in this moment, I choose joy. And another deep breath. Exhale. One more time. In this moment, I choose joy. And to just notice how this affirmation feels to say aloud. And now I invite you to place your hands on your heart and really drop into your heart. Feel the rhythm as it beats in your chest. Direct your breath to your heart. And begin to call to mind in your heart the moments, people, places, or senses that bring joy to your life. And if your mind wanders, it's okay. Just bring it back to focusing on anything that brings you joy. Feeling that in your heart space. And if the block arises again, to simply reaffirm, in this moment, I choose joy. I'm going to allow a few moments for you to just reflect on all of the things that bring you joy and encourage you to really feel them in your heart. Now, just take a moment to notice how you are feeling, to notice what shifted or happened or how you felt, to choose joy, to reflect on joy, to notice if there's any shifts in terms of how your heart is feeling. And just knowing that at any time, you can choose this practice to work through a block around joy or to connect to your heart and to things that bring joy to your life. And so we'll take one deep breath in before ending the practice. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Excellent. And you can open your eyes when it feels comfortable to do so. And before I move on, I'm just going to stop share so I can see if there are any questions or feedback thus far. Okay. Okay. All right. So another way that we can lean into joy is through practicing gratitude. And this has been proven through many different bodies of research. And this myth and truth comes from some of Brene Brown's research, that joyful people are grateful. And she had stated that in her research, it was people who practice gratitude were more joyful. So for me, when I heard this and read about this, it was really great news because I didn't have to be born a naturally joyful person, that I could actually cultivate more joy in my life by practicing gratitude. And one of the quotes that really stood out for me in her work was, "I've never interviewed a single person who talks about the capacity to experience and really soften into joy who does not actively practice gratitude." And so I know I've been practicing gratitude myself a lot more. At the wellness center I work for, the Healing Loft, the month of May, I've been doing a gratitude practice that gives people a focus, whether it's a friend or a place or a moment, and every day there's something different in terms of a focus for gratitude. But I still do get asked at times, and I have honestly reflected on it myself, about practicing gratitude doesn't mean that we don't feel pain or acknowledge our other emotions like anger or sadness. It's not about putting a silver lining on really difficult situations, um, or pretending that everything's fine and the sunshine and unicorns. Practicing gratitude is, we can still have a horrible day. I know since I've been trying to practice it every single day, it's a lot harder, to find things I'm grateful for on those days when either I'm exhausted or I've gotten really bad news about something, or, somebody that I care about is really struggling. So it's not about ignoring, how I feel about those other situations. It is about, in spite of those really tough days, still really searching for things that I can be grateful for. And as cheesy as it might sound, my anchor is, if I'm still breathing, that alone is something to be grateful for. So I do want to make that point, because I think sometimes when people hear about practicing gratitude, it's this sense that they have to deny, like you're not allowed to be in struggle. You're not allowed to be in pain. You just always have to be grateful for every single thing that's happening to you. Not at all. Not at all. You still get to feel sad and angry. In fact, those are equally important emotions. It's, if we're wanting to cultivate more joy, just being able to find things to be grateful for, even on those really difficult days. And so, what is gratitude practice? Because it is more, when I was looking into it, it's more than just an attitude. It really does take a daily focus, especially if we were raised, pardon me, in this fear and scarcity culture, where our brains are just wired, right, to either go to the worst or think the worst or think about the fear. Our brains may not be wired to go directly to focus on things that we're grateful for. So it is a practice, and it's daily focus and on an appreciation for all the big and little things in our lives. I talked about it earlier that gratitude practice requires connection to the heart. So it's not just a cognitive practice where it's, I'm really grateful that I'm alive. That's wonderful. But gratitude practice, I always use my hands on my heart. It just helps me to connect to my heart, but it really is connecting to the heart and feeling like that gratefulness about being alive, about breathing, about having a heartbeat and being able to connect to it. So I was really trying to drop down into the feeling of gratitude, and not just as a cognitive exercise. And the practice, so neuroplasticity is a wonderful thing. Regardless of our age, we can still create new neural pathways to train our brain to focus on what we want to focus on. And the more that we make gratitude a practice, the more of a default it becomes for us. The practice. So on the way back from the dinner that I went to this evening, I was just thinking about how my husband at times has said, it's like you have rose-colored glasses on. Like you see the positive too much. And I used to think, again, going to that shame, I used to think there was that was a bad thing. That it made me naive, or it made me silly or ridiculous. And so on the walk back to the hotel this evening, I decided to make a stop and embrace not just my rose-colored glasses, but I'm going to call them my joy glasses. And it's totally okay to be laughing at me right now. I can't see you, but I'm hoping you are. I have no shame. I've been able to embrace the joy. And whether you put on your metaphorical joy glasses or you actually buy a silly pair, like I'm probably going to get the whole family a pair of these, to use the joy glasses to practice, so that every time your joy glasses are on, that you are actively seeking things that bring joy or that you're grateful for, no matter how small. I on the walk back, I bought these at the dollar store. Surprise, they're not designer. But even in the dollar store, I saw these big helium balloons. I'm grateful for helium balloons. I smile every time I see them. So as part of practice, you can be creative however you want. For me, it's going to be my joy glasses, but to make a habit out of really, really looking for things to be grateful for in life. And there was another video that I watched. I forget the name of the woman, but she was a designer, and she was talking about how certain shapes and colors and certain aesthetics bring joy to our lives. So I've started to be more grateful for color and shapes and things, of that nature. So it's once we start, practicing and really, really looking for it, what you'll notice is that more things will come your way that you're actually feeling grateful for. And then in terms of practicing, some people will have journals, rituals. I know actually we've been guilty of it. We've missed it for the past bit, but as a family at dinner time, we would sit down and talk about all the things we were grateful for throughout the day. And I know in my own private practice of gratitude practice, every night before I go to bed, I go through all the things that I was grateful for throughout the day. So it's just developing that habit of practicing gratitude. And there's that saying, right, that, where focus goes, energy flows. And again, ever since I've been really consciously focusing on gratitude, I've noticed that I feel much more, I feel as though there's more to be grateful for, whether that's true or not. And they were always there. That feeling of gratitude just continues to expand and expand and expand. Pardon me. And then the last is I always encourage, and there's a lot of health in terms of sharing it. So if you have a guilt joy block around sharing joy, this might be a little more difficult. But it was Amanda Gore with the Joy Project, with the Joy Project. She talks about how sharing joy and love with others actually has been proven to boost both people's immune systems. So if you are feeling joy or love and you're spreading it to other people, you're doing both of yourselves a favor. And then Gottman. So the Gottmans they're very well-known therapists who work with couples, and they are a couple themselves. And in their research, they said they can predict marital satisfaction by the degree of gratitude expressed within a relationship. And their ratio is, if there's 5 things that people are expressing that they're grateful for or complimenting their partner on, to the 1 criticism or thing to fix, that's the healthy balance. But that in their research, they were able to predict the future outcome of a couple and satisfaction and whether they stayed together or not, based on how often they express gratitude towards one another. So would encourage, if you do have a significant other, to consciously make an effort to share, what you're grateful for about them. And then the last one, it was a really cute way that I thought that Amanda Gore talks about in terms of sharing joy and gratitude, and she called them zoots. And there was this story of her mom, and that's what her mom called, like, the little hearts that she would send her. She called them zoots. So Amanda encouraged to just zoot everybody. When you see someone, just send them zoots, zoot, zoot. And again, it's just that idea of sharing all the gratitude. It will just continue to expand the gratitude and joy in our hearts, and also impact the people around us. And there's also research that states that our heart, this is science, so I believe in energy in terms of Reiki, but I also believe in science, and scientific research has proven that the electrocurrents within the heart expand up to 10 feet, outside of our body. So that what is going on in here literally will impact the electric currents and the brain waves of other people. So what she was saying, Amanda, in her one of the talks that she did, was to just keep sharing and giving that love, and will continue to not only benefit us and our experiences of joy and happiness in our lives, but also give us the opportunity to share it with others. And especially if it's those we love, it genuinely will impact them in many, many ways. Okay, so what I want to encourage everybody right now, just to start the practice, is in the Q&A box down, I believe it's down the bottom or at the top of your screen, and to just take a moment or two and share with me what you're feeling grateful for. I'll give you a couple moments. We've got some coming in. So I'm just going to give it a little bit more time and I'll start reading them so that I can practice what I'm preaching and share some gratitude and joy with all of you watching. So we have my dog for its unconditional love, the sunshine and the chance to catch as much of this as I could in a crazy day. I'm so glad you can join, that you made the effort to come, even if it was, even if you were running late. And yes, it is being recorded. My job and the joy I find in it, caring for others and being affirmed for it. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing to be grateful for. Grandchildren, sunsets, beautiful flowers, music, my cute little grandpuppy. It's so sweet. He loves me and greets me at the door full of joy. Oh, our dog's just always full of unconditional love. I know our little one he's 12 years old, but I still call him my puppy, and no matter what, always will bring a smile to my face at the end of the day. For my children, my foster kitten, beautiful. My parents, my children. And how, I mean, I welcome you to type in the answer, even just hearing, while thinking for yourself and writing it down and hearing what other people are grateful for. How is everyone feeling right now? Truly. I would love to hear. I'll give a moment to get some. Okay, so we have lighthearted. Beautiful. How's everybody else feeling? Or do you have questions? Because I know this was, I mean, a lot of stuff covered in a short period of time. So we have a question in terms of what is the difference between joy versus happiness. In terms of the context, so some people, when they speak about joy and happiness, they speak about them in the same context. For this webinar, the difference for me is joy is an emotion. So connecting to joy is an emotion. Whereas for me, happiness is more of a state, right? Something we're trying to reach. I want to be happy. I want to just, live a happy life without any whatever stress or drama or those sorts of things. So just in the context of this webinar, joy was the emotional experience. And like any emotion, it will ebb and flow, right? So just like with anger, sadness, grief, fear, things happen in our lives to stimulate those emotions. They come up as a physical response, and then they pass. So I hope that answers your question enough. But again, some people, I'm not professing that what I'm saying is right and other people are wrong. For some people, it's the same thing. So connection with you all brings joy immediately, was feedback from one of our participants. And another participant is feeling uplifted. Fabulous. Well, I know, I think it's a couple minutes early, but I'm going to put my joy glasses back on and want to send you all off on the rest of your day with a bunch of zoots and to express that I am truly grateful for everybody who participated today. We have people, I think, from all over the world, and just really want to extend gratitude to each and every one of you for showing up for yourself today, and for taking the time out of your day to spend with me. And it is truly something that I love and I'm passionate about. So I'm so grateful that all of you could come today. And I'll wait a couple more seconds for any more questions. And if not, then I will just send a bunch of zoots to everybody, and really genuinely hoping that you can connect to joy throughout the rest of the day, or, you know, if your day is over, that you go to bed, you know, thinking of all the things that you're grateful for. Okay. So we don't see any more questions. So take care, everybody. This will be recorded and available probably in about a week on our website. And wishing you all joy in your hearts and gratitude in your days ahead. Take care.